Today, I have the honor and pleasure of interviewing my friend Susan Hannigan, consummate New Yorker, Washington Heights dweller, and volunteer for the United Palace Movie Committee. Thank you, Susan Hannigan.
Susan, when did you first move to Washington Heights and why?
I moved to Washington Heights 15 years ago. In my previous home I lived in, I was starting to work out from home, and I was working out of a corner of my bedroom, like a lot of New Yorkers have discovered doing in the last 2 years. And I found it was probably not good for my head nor my love life. And I thought it maybe had been time to start looking for larger spaces and see what was available. And I had friends who were up in the Heights, and I was astounded by the architecture and some of the beauty and the history of the area. And I could see what was going to happen down the road, that the neighborhood was going to change for safety reasons, that Columbia was going to expand and the influence on that. And I decided to start looking around.
Okay, and so how did you get involved with United Palace? And tell us about United Palace and what it is and has become.
Sure. The United Palace started off initially as one of the Lowe's Wonder Palaces. They were all built in 1930. There were 6 of them, one in each borough and one in New Jersey City. They all had a unique, glorious architectural design. This is back when going to the movies was a thing, and you would sit with 1,000 or 2,000 of your other neighbors. And then TV comes in, movies going starts to decline. And in 1969, the United Palace, then just the Palace, closed. It's had its last screening was 2001. And then remarkable minister, Reverend Ike, people who maybe old school New Yorkers remember, he bought the theater for his congregation. He screened his services on Sundays on local TV and on the radio. And because he was such a successful person, he was able to keep the theater in immaculate condition. It looks almost exactly like it did if you had come to the theater in 1932. And it's the only one of the theaters that can say that. The others have either been destroyed or have had to be redone. The one in Brooklyn, a lot of people know about. The one in Jersey City, they're still building it and rebuilding it as we speak, but the other ones have been destroyed. But Reverend Ike managed to keep it glorious. And then when he died, his family essentially gave the church, the theater, back to the neighborhood to be an arts center as well as a spiritual center. It still has a big focus on spirituality with services on Sundays still, most days, but also spiritual leaders from around the world come and leading meditations, talks. It's really kind of extraordinary. But along with that, it being an arts center. And about 8 years ago, the head of the theater approached a guy named Lin-Manuel Miranda and said, "What do you think we should do with the space?"
A
guy. He was a guy.
Yeah.
A kid from the neighborhood. And he said, Lynn was like, it was a movie theater, why don't we start showing movies again? And around that time, they announced that they were doing that. I was looking for something to volunteer to do in the neighborhood. And I approached them and I said, I think you need me. Occasionally I say that to people. That's how I got my partner now, has basically said that to him too. And I've been volunteering them ever since for the last 8 years.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about how the committee chooses the movies and how often the movies have happened? It's not during the pandemic, but pre-pandemic.
Sure. It's varied. The first year, that guy Lynn, he picked the first year, and all the movies, and they were his favorite movies about New York City. We've done things like teamed up with Fox movie company, and we did a year which was all a tribute to the women of Fox, of people like Betty Grable and Shirley Temple. It's actually, they've got it great. And this time, what we did is during the lockdown, various people involved with theater wrote lists of fantasy movies we wish could be screening at the theater. And it came out to, after doing that for about a year or two, about 50 or 60 films. And what we did this time is we put it out to the neighborhood and anybody else who's on our mailing list and said, vote for what you want to have shown. And these upcoming 6 screenings, that guy Lynn I told you about and his family, they're paying to have all the films be free to the neighborhood, as well as extraordinary entertainment. It's his, they're very nice people, that family. And he will be hosting, that nice kid will be hosting all of these screenings, along with some of his friends that he's met over the last few years. For example, next Sunday, he's got this pal named Patty Lapone, couple Tony Awards. They're going to be hosting our first screening, which will be all about Eve. So I'm thinking this is going to be what we're doing for the next 6 screenings, is someone who's quite lovely giving a love to our neighborhood.
That's amazing. And speaking of the neighborhood, could you just give me a little bit of neighborhood flavor? What are some of your favorite haunts and maybe why?
Oh, a lot of different ones. Walking distance up the hill from mine is a wonderful place called the Morris-Jumelmansion. It's the oldest mansion in Manhattan. It's a literal George Washington slept here mansion. Besides being historically accurate, they have extraordinary things like free camps for kids during the summer, or next to near free camps. A lot of educational facilities and wonderful gallery showings. So they're fantastic. Word Up Bookstore started up as a pop-up, and the neighborhood.
What is it? I'm sorry.
Word Up Bookstore.
Okay.
Word Up Bookstore started up as just an experimental pop-up about 9-10 years ago, and the neighborhood fell in love with it. And it's now a full-time, all volunteer run bookstore, which besides books, they do readings, they do concerts, they have a community fridge, they were providing vaccines and masks for the neighborhood. Again, all volunteer, all extraordinary principles, things like that are great. If you're a person with kids, there is the Sugar Hill Children's Museum and Storytelling Center, which has a combination of galleries with extraordinary artists creating interactive exhibits for children. Plus, they have a studio, which always has amazing materials and wonderful teachers working with kids, and this beautiful storytelling space. It's a treasure of Manhattan that I think a lot more people need to know about who have small kids. And they also have, I believe they have a preschool, and they also had a summer camp that my kid actually went to one summer. And so it's, there's a lot of real richness of history and culture into arts and community dedication. Like Word Up, it's basically just people saying, what do we do to make the neighborhood work? What do we need? What do we need to support? And it's not just creative, it's principles, ethics. You know, a lot of people here get that New York is changing, and a lot of people in need, and a lot of people need support, and they want to give back and give their time, and they're amazing.
So what keeps you in New York? What keeps you in Washington Heights?
You know, I don't want to be one of those arrogant New Yorkers that think it's the only place. You know, I don't want to pull that crap because there's nothing more annoying than anybody saying that about their neighborhood. I totally get why some people don't want to be in New York. So I'm not, you know, I get it's dirty, it's expensive, it's loud. However, I think New York demands of you more and thus gives you more. It's fairly small, you know, we're an island, so it's a blender. So you constantly have to say to yourself, I'm going to be interacting with somebody not like me in some way. Some cities, you know, they're so broad, you can basically stay in your pocket, whatever your pocket is. But if you go to a park, if you go to a movie, if you go to a culture event, you will be sitting next to somebody who has a completely different experience than you of what life is about and it makes you, I think, if you go for the ride, a richer, stronger, more blessed person for it. And then the flip side of that is, like, the Metropolitan Museum now is doing free date night on Friday and Saturday night with live music and cocktails. It's free if you're a New Yorker. That's nuts. That's, yeah, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go, and that's just sort of just on the news. Abandoned storefronts, there's a whole story of, okay, we've got these businesses that are not using them. They're being used for art installations. That's worth it to me.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit more about the Palace's upcoming shows? And you said that it's still used as a spiritual place. Are there any other things that it's used for besides the showing, free movies to the public?
Sure. Well, as I said, they have concerts there regularly. You can go on their website, unitedpalace.org, and see everything is coming. I know Wilco is coming in the spring and going to be doing performances. I think it's 6 performances of one of their greatest albums. Because we're a largely Dominican neighborhood, a lot of amazing Latino music is used there. But Iggy Pop has played there. It's Dylan's played there. And it's a really unique space to have a concert at. As I said, they do Deepak Chopra. One of the last things I saw there before we closed, just happened to show up and do a talk. Which is kind of amazing, just to sort of like, oh, I'm in my neighborhood and here's this world-renowned person just giving me his thoughts, and that's pretty cool. What was the first question about the theater? Oh, screenings. So screenings. So I'm very proud of what our neighborhood did. So out of this huge list, they picked what we're going to do. And it really is, I think, reflective of our neighborhood in that it's very diverse, both culturally and gender-wise. Like the classic movie is all about Eve. I thought that was pretty hip. I've been actually pushing on them to do a Betty Davis for a while. We didn't know which one was the name of the But we're showing Do the Right Thing. We're showing Coco. We are showing Indiana Jones, the first. We're showing Black Panther. Showman. So the next movie is Greatest Showman.
What is it?
The Greatest Showman.
Oh, The Greatest Showman.
I don't know who the guest is going to be there. But the star of the show and that movie is on Broadway right now. I make no promises.
I just wanted to kind of wind this up on thoughts on aging and aging in New York, and the fact that both of us are now older than Bet was when she starred in All About Eve.
Which is,
do you have thoughts about aging as a woman in New York?
Yeah. I remember when my mom was retiring, she said she didn't want to grow old anymore. She was talking about things like knees and hips and how hard it is to just be old as a person in New York sometimes if you don't have support. I do watch the news actively to see how are the subways getting updated so that folks who are fragile or disabled can use them more. And I do think that that's something we should be, and the whole infrastructure taken care of. I think in general, I've noticed this is a conversation with women friends. When we look at pictures of our grandmothers at our age now, most of us overwhelmingly say that we look younger than most of our grandmothers did. And there's a lot of different reasoning to that. I think nutrition is better. I don't think most of us smoke, the concept of drinking cocktails throughout the day to deal with your misery is not as embraced as it was, say, 1952. And I think all that years. But I also think, first of all, that defining who you are based on loving your body as it ages and being able to talk about things like menopause and all your sexuality, all these things. It's a different conversation than it was for previous generations. So that we don't have to be slammed into the concept of, well, I'm a grandmother now, or it would be great. But I think there's a broader expectation of what we can be now. And as far as New York is concerned, I love the parade. I love, one of the things, my favorite things about being in the theater is I interact with all these people. And one of the things I interact with are fantastic women with wonderful wardrobes and fabulous lives and extraordinary senses of humor who talk to me about having gone to the theater when they were kids. I mean, a lot of people like that. They'll talk to me about going and seeing Gigi or whatever else back when they were a child, and now they're 60s and 70s and they're so happy to be back. And I think in New York, it's not that you have to stay young or fit into some sort of, outdated image of yourself. I think you're allowed to grow older and be wonderful in a way that maybe some other cultures haven't embraced in the past. And you don't have to wear uncomfortable shoes because they now make comfortable shoes that are pretty good looking. I think that's another factor.
I like comfortable shoes. Yes.
Comfortable shoes that look great.
That look great. Yes. So
I just had foot surgery, so I'm very into the comfortable shoes that look great thing.
I understand. Well, thank you for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you this Sunday. And there are no longer orchestra seats.
There's no orchestra seats. You can have balconies, and the balcony seats are amazing. Amazing. You've not a bad seat in the house. We are the 4th largest theater in New York City. So that's Radio City large. So there will be room for you most likely, but do get onto our website, unitedpalace.org, and get your seats now.
Okay. And I will have that link in the newsletter. Thank you so much for taking this time. And I will see you next Sunday, which is
Looking forward to it.
6th. The doors will open at 11 o'clock and the ceremony will start at noon.
That's right.
Thank you.